Could I tell you what my money laundering plan is to see what you think of it?
What do you mean, what do I think of it? Or what do I think as like an art project? Or what do you mean? Does it seem right? Like, does it seem like this could happen? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Starting with a bunch of money. Um,
Hmm.
and so then breaking it up into smaller amounts. Um, because in the US, the uh, at least deposits over $10,000 receive additional scrutiny.
You can't do 9,999 multiple times. That would also get flagged, or like repetitively doing two $5,000 transactions would get flagged. So just FYI. The $10,000 is like one number, but it doesn't mean that's all that banks catch. So I'm not like afraid of money. I think of it as a tool. I just know I don't have enough of it and I'll never have enough of it. But I also know that there's no real enough with money.
Money laundering might be the defining crime of our era. It is estimated that between $800 billion and $2 trillion are laundered annually worldwide. Money laundering is the act of hiding or obscuring the origins of illicit funds. You take dirty money and transform it through a series of transactions into clean money. In 2020, a U.S. Senate investigation concluded that the secrecy of the art world makes art an attractive instrument for laundering money. Transactions are often private, prices are speculative, and an item can be easily smuggled to evade authorities. In 2022, global art sales reached $67.8 billion. For the last couple years, I've been trying to launder money through art acquisition.
So I think the really unique property of art, artistic objects or creations, is the fact that their value is completely subjective. And I'm trying to think if that's unique. I think it probably is. In fact, possibly maybe that's a definition of art, is it? Something that's value is subjective? I don't know. Anyway, and so that gives someone the ability to move wealth, transfer wealth, anonymously, conveniently, sort of subjectively, in a way that is impossible otherwise.
It's December. I'm on an airplane traveling to the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands are a British overseas territory. The largest of the islands, Grand Cayman Island, is 75 square miles in dimension, about the size of Brooklyn. Archaeological study has found no evidence of permanent indigenous habitation prior to the arrival of Westerners. The Caymans have always been a geographic way station for travelers and fishermen. In 1966, the Cayman Islands passed a set of laws adopting a classical tax havens model. Despite its small size, by 2008, the Cayman Islands were the fourth largest financial center in the world. Money laundering is a three-part cycle. The first stage is called placement. The goal of this stage is to break up your money into smaller amounts, which can be transferred to cashier's checks for portability and convenience. The initial cash is now one step removed from its origin.
Lots of folks here. Only one ticket sold in the entire U.S. And look at all these folks who are showing up.
While I was making this film, someone won $2.4 billion in the Powerball lottery at Joe's service station in Altadena, less than a mile from my apartment. Being an artist requires a particular kind of self-delusion. I'm almost 40 and I've balanced 2 or 3 jobs for most of my life. I own no property. I have no plan for retirement. I go to my studio on nights and weekends. Or, more often, I feel guilty about not going. I'm not naive. I know that most art careers are driven by trust funds or credit card debt, or both. But there's still a voice inside me that insists, maybe it's going to be me. Maybe I'll be the one that gets discovered, that makes it. Because I'm different, I'm special. So I'll just try a little harder, just for a few more years. On my third day in the Cayman Islands, I visit the wreck of the Tensale, an historic landmark that is credited as the reason for the Cayman's low taxation policies. After making some inquiries, I discover that I need to rent a car because the wreck of the Tensale is on the other side of the island. This means I need to figure out how to drive on the left side of the road. On February 7, 1794, a convoy of 10 British ships wrecked on the reefs off of Gun Bay on the east end of Grand Cayman Island. Island residents heard the distress signal and paddled out in canoes to attempt a rescue. According to legend, one of the rescued passengers was the son of King George III. When he heard of the rescue, the king issued a royal decree that from that day on, the Caymans would be free of taxation. No record of this royal decree exists. However, this story is widely repeated as the origin of the island's special financial status. Stage 2 of the money laundering cycle is layering. In this stage, the launderer undertakes further acts of concealment to create distance between the money and its source. A popular form of layering is the creation of shell corporations, through which you can move your money. Ideally, these corporations should cross international jurisdictions. Regulation and oversight end at a country's borders, but your money can keep going.
You know, I've learned a lot of things. One thing, the main thing I've learned is that it takes actually quite a bit of money to launder money. So then I've been working with a lawyer who has recommended several jurisdictions where I could form shell corporations. And these are jurisdictions which are both kind of amenable, like tax havens, you know, low tax policies, high privacy, and also have sort of robust art storage facilities and kind of available art markets. What we've decided to do, I've settled on 3 places, and I've actually visited these places. The first is the Cayman Islands.
Cool.
Yeah. The second is Switzerland.
Very good, cool.
Okay. And the third is Hong Kong. Yeah, so that's the plan.
Well, I think it's a great plan. I love it.
You don't need to go to the Cayman Islands to set up a shell corporation. These days, everything can be done virtually. There are companies with people working as registered agents, meaning you can pay them to be the proxy for your new corporation. Their name goes on all the paperwork, so you remain anonymous. The Caymans are famous for their corporate registration services. This building, for example, is called Ugland House. It is legally home to 18,857 corporate entities. In general, tax havens have 3 qualities: low or zero taxation for non-residents, easy methods of incorporation, and legally protected secrecy. For small countries like the Cayman Islands, with little industry beyond tourism and few natural resources to exploit, business-friendly policies create economic opportunity, fueling the growth of a local financial services sector. In the Cayman Islands, the tourism and financial services industries make up 50 to 60% of the country's gross domestic product.
Okay, the commercial art world is a very strange place. Although it claims to be about art, I would say 90% of it is about money and power. So, the way I worked in the art world, it was very high stakes, very high price points, very high pressure, millions of dollars changing hands. And a lot of both the primary and the secondary market are inherently premised on asymmetry of information. I know something that you don't know, hence I can make more money. I mean, especially in our day and age, art has become an asset class. So you see art funds, you see, ventures like Masterworks, basically treating artworks like stocks and bonds. They're like bundle portfolio investment products where you invest in a basket of artworks. So yeah, art is, I guess, part of the larger finance industry now.
In 1905, when Pablo Picasso was just 24, he completed a large painting called The Family of Saltimbanque. The painting, from Picasso's Rose period, depicts a family of sad circus performers. At the same time that Picasso was making Saltimbanque, a financier named André Lavelle was forming the first art investment consortium, a group of investors that called themselves the Skin of the Bear. Over 10 years, Lavelle's consortium purchased a portfolio of 145 modern artworks, including Saltimbanque. In 1914, Lavelle sold off the portfolio in a highly publicized auction at the Hotel Drouot in Paris. The auction was a huge success. The capstone of the collection was Picasso's Saltimbanque, which sold for 12 times its original purchase price. According to legend, in this moment, Lavelle proved that art could be a viable medium for investment. I'm in an airplane going to Switzerland. This time, I'm bringing my friend to help me film videos and keep me company. We eat fondue and watch Heidi in our hotel room.
Please make every little boy and girl in the world as happy as I am. Amen.
Banking secrecy was perfected by the Swiss with the passage of the Banking Act of 1934, a series of laws that made it a criminal offense to conduct inquiries or research into the content of Swiss bank accounts. These protections were so ironclad that they extended to governments, including the Swiss government, who was barred from viewing documents held within its own borders. While in Switzerland, we visit Art Basel, the famous art fair in the town of Basel on the banks of the Rhine. The Basel brand has gone global. Now there's also Miami Basel and Basel Hong Kong. We walk through a maze of white-walled booths, each cubicle holding an assortment of paintings. In the layering phase of the money laundering cycle, you might choose to create a nested shell corporation structure. In this case, it would make sense to establish a primary company in the Cayman Islands, which serves as the director of a second company in Hong Kong and a third company in Switzerland. The Swiss company can hold the bank account, as Swiss accounts attract less regulatory scrutiny. In order to locate the ultimate account holder, you would have to pierce several layers of international corporations.
Hi, I'm here to see Sarah. Of course, come sit.
You may want to work with a lawyer to create a sufficiently complex corporate architecture and handle the required documentation for the bank account. My lawyer has advised me that any recording of our interactions would constitute a breach of attorney-client privilege. This is the view outside her office window. After your lawyer has set up your offshore corporations, she can gather your documentation and help you open your Swiss bank account. Now, in the last part of the layering stage, you can deposit your piles of money converted into smaller cashier's checks into your offshore account. If you buy an artwork, you can have it shipped directly to a Freeport to avoid paying taxes on your purchase. Art storage facilities exist in many places, but the Geneva Freeport is one of the oldest and maybe the best. The Freeport contains a series of high-security underground warehouses that store the art collections and luxury goods of the ultra-rich. No one knows exactly how much art is down there, but reports estimate 1.2 million artworks, including thousands of Picassos, making it the largest art collection in the world. The Geneva Freeport is a designated transit zone, and so objects stored there are not subject to any taxes because, legally speaking, they are in constant motion. Physically, of course, they go nowhere and are seen by no one. Sales can be transacted without the artwork ever leaving the premises. A phone call is made and the object is moved from one storage unit to the next. At the Geneva Freeport, there's a front-facing building with a nice lobby, and I'm surprised to find a receptionist working behind the desk.
We were actually wondering about storage, like art storage. Do you do that here?
Yes.
Do you have a pamphlet or anything like that?
Everyone is helpful. A woman in stylish glasses takes us back to a sunny conference room and explains the legal benefits of an object that is forever in transit.
Control customs with an inventory, and the goods are in transit.
Okay.
No VAT, no duties.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
And the other option
She gives me
is
some
Swiss
recommendations for local
VAT
brokers
free.
we could work with.
Again, you need to have an address because we've.
Okay, so then I've made my deposits into my Swiss bank account, and then I use the Swiss bank account to purchase an artwork.
Yes.
And I could do that in any number of places. I could do that.
You can buy that artwork literally in any city in the world and have it shipped to the Freeport in Geneva. Yeah.
And if it's shipped directly to the Freeport, it won't be taxed.
That's my understanding.
And it seems like I have then two options. One would be to resell it, and the other, and generate liquidity that way. And the other option would be to use it for a loan, as collateral for a loan.
Yeah, or to just hold on to it till it appreciates. Yeah, I guess that's reselling it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In theory, you're going to get the appraisal. Like in theory, the appraisal tells you an exact value, which we know is a sort of like fungible number. So that's not really true. It's that value. It's an estimate at that moment in time, right? I think that if you just sold it right away, you would have cash right away, and then you could go back to your cashier's check situation. Versus if you get a loan, you might find someone willing to lend you more because they're banking on the appreciation of the asset. Does that make sense? More than you could sell it for in that minute, if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you can convince someone to buy it for more than it's worth.
I don't need to be rich, but I'd like to have more money than I have now. I think about money all the time, how I don't have enough of it and how I deserve more of it. I imagine what life would be like if I didn't have to go to work, how I would spend my days making art and gardening and baking bread. I tend to resent people who have more money than I do because I'm envious of all their free time. I also know that when I've had my own career successes, other artists, including some friends, have resented me in turn. Sometimes it seems like the entire art world is run on jealousy, anger, and shame. I'm in Hong Kong. It's June and it's hot and humid. At one point, I took out my camera to find out that the lens had completely fogged up. Hong Kong was a small maritime outpost when it was taken by the British during the Opium Wars. The British interest in the island was the strategic access it would provide to opening markets in mainland China. In 1843, Hong Kong's governor, John Francis Davis, described British prospects in Hong Kong. There is a real British colony planted on the very threshold of China. There they may see commerce flourishing in the absence of restrictions. Historically, tax havens, or international finance centers, have evolved around two geographic poles. The first pole developed in relation to the European Benelux countries and includes Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Liechtenstein. The second geographic pole is the City of London, including many former British colonies, like the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, the Channel Islands, the Isle of Man, Bermuda, Singapore, and Hong Kong.
I mean, the British, what's left of the British Empire, which is a selection of mostly tiny islands scattered around the oceans of the world, are very closely connected to the offshore financial system and therefore to the laundering of money system and the tax evasion system. That these places, Cayman Islands, for example, had to somehow make a living. It was a tiny place which depended largely on turtle fishing, had a population of 5,000, and was getting no real help from London because London didn't care about it. So it saw this opportunity to make money by essentially encouraging Americans to evade tax. And there were lots of Americans who were very happy to do that. But really, what you have is this sort of glorious sort of half British, half not British status, in that they are British enough to be protected by British law and have British lawyers and so on, but not British enough to have British law enforcement or legislation. So even though the British Empire is gone, essentially this sort of shadow empire of lawyers and judges remains, and they find it very easy to do business with each other.
Hong Kong has a long history of loose financial regulations. The island does not tax foreign income, capital gains, interest, or dividends. Foreigners who keep their money in Hong Kong pay no net worth taxes or public benefit taxes, like Social Security. In 2020, Hong Kong ranked 4th on the Financial Secrecy Index, just behind Switzerland, the United States, and the Cayman Islands.
Okay, I'm an artist based in Hong Kong, and I've shown throughout Asia. I feel like giving a name, it should, I don't know. Do other people give names?
It depends. You can use a fake name if you want.
Okay, my name is Robert Wong. So Hong Kong has always had artists, but they sort of weren't on any kind of radar until a little bit more than 10 years ago, when suddenly there was a hole to be filled by auction houses here. And the auction houses arrived first, followed by Art Hong Kong. And that was very quickly followed by all the blue chip galleries. Yeah, it's a city that doesn't really have any more industry. I mean, when the English arrived after the Opium War, they were essentially, and they built it up to essentially be a port or like a stopover for the rest of Asia. And in the way that they built it, it sort of allows it to be what it is today, in which in a lot of different ways it's sort of regarded as a kind of bus station of sorts, where you have a lot of people coming and going. It's very normal to have very good friends, just have to leave at a drop of a hat. And you get used to it. You say a lot of goodbyes.
The last stage of the money laundering cycle is called integration, in which the launderer converts her money back into a form she can enjoy. In this last stage, a layering mechanism, like a series of nested shell corporations, may be used to purchase an asset. This asset should lend an aura of legitimacy to your wealth, providing a logical explanation as to where your money came from.
Hey,
Hi. Hey. How's it going?
pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hearing that you have some art for me to purchase.
Yes, I do. I have this really beautiful drawing by Abigail Raphael Collins, if you know the artist.
Yeah, I do know her.
Yeah, she has this great piece here. It's a stack of redaction papers, and it's actually drawn in redaction ink. And funny enough, the title is Redaction.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have it in the gallery?
Yeah, we have it in the gallery now. I'd love to show it to you. The price is $4,000, and if you're free this week, we could find a time for you to come by and take a look at it in person.
Oh, that sounds great. And just one question. Do you think if I wanted to, I might be able to resell it down the road?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really interesting piece. She hasn't done a lot of these works, and so I think you could definitely resell it down the line.
Okay. And then one more thing. Do you think if I wanted to buy it from you right now, do you think you might be able to hold on to it for me at the gallery for a while?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay. You can keep it. You can just store it there or something.
Yeah, of course. Whatever works best for you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ben. All right. Well, I will come by with a check.
Okay, great. I will text you and we can find a date.
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Maura. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
After Lavelle's auction, Picasso would become the most famous artist in the world, emblematic of a certain kind of creative power and freedom. But Picasso would also become famous for his financial literacy, his control over his own image and position within the art market. Throughout his life, he retained a huge amount of his own work. When he died, 45,000 unsold artworks were found in his personal collection, alongside $4.5 million in cash, $1.3 million in gold, and 5 properties, including 2 chateaux in the south of France. His estate was estimated to be in the billions. Picasso mastered the markets, and now the markets master us. Rising art prices are a barometer for inequality. As the rich get richer, art gets more expensive. In 2011, a study showed that for each percentage point increase in wealth among the top 1%, the price of art increases 14%. And as life becomes increasingly unequal, so does the art world. Since 1970, the number of working-class artists has decreased by half.
Art has always, I think, eluded the financial authorities. So art is still used as a place to park money, launder money, like avoid paying taxes, or, flip it so that you don't have to pay capital gains tax. There's so many ways art is being used to just, make the wealthy wealthier.
I've been just writing and rewriting the script over and over again. And I think the thing that I've really come to is this piece is about coming to terms with the fact that when I'm working in my studio, no matter how tangential my relationship to the art world is, or the art market is, I'm really what I'm doing is making financial instruments.
Now that you've purchased an artwork, you have several options. You could leverage your art into collateral for a loan, although this may open you up to additional scrutiny. The best way to liquefy your asset is by reselling it in a private sale. Dealers or auction houses might handle both the sale of an artwork to you and its resale to another collector, all while keeping the artwork stored in gallery facilities or in your personal storage unit. As a money launderer, you may never lay eyes on your acquisition because its primary purpose is not for viewing, but rather to act as a conduit through which wealth is temporarily stored and transferred. The money laundering cycle is complete when you receive a check in the mail. While I was working on this project, I did kind of win the lottery. I received 2 major art grants, the biggest of my career, which is how I got the money to make this video. Even so, it turns out that laundering money is really expensive. For example, just opening a Swiss bank account as a foreign corporation requires a $5 million minimum deposit, depending on the bank. It doesn't matter how many grants I win, the world of international finance is still out of reach. What the awards have given me is the luxury of time, the ability to keep playing the game, at least for a few more years. So I'll keep grinding it out in the studio, and if I'm very lucky, maybe I'll sell a few things, move up in the world, and get myself a French chateau. When we say offshore, what we mean are legal spaces that decouple the real location of a transaction from its legal location. An object hanging in your home, but owned in an offshore jurisdiction, is physically present but legally absent, both here and not here. This legal fiction is useful because it means you can physically own an object in one place while legally owning it in another. The word offshore describes the type of wind that blows from the land to the sea. People who live offshore serve the financial needs of other people in faraway places. Money moves through, but it doesn't stay.